Coming up on Network Africa, Libya's UN-recognized Prime Minister begins a visit to Europe to rally support against militia leader General Khalifa Haftar. Hage Geingob declares a state of emergency to tackle the effects of a drought that has hit the country. Plus, 6 people arrested in South Africa after the car of an election official was torched in Ganyeza town. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shaboali. Libya's UN-recognized Prime Minister has begun a short visit to Europe as he seeks allies in his struggle against a rogue military commander. Fayez al-Sarraj travels first to Italy before traveling on to Germany for talks with Chancellor Angela Merkel. On Wednesday, he will meet the French President Emmanuel Macron, whom he has criticized for supporting his rival, General Khalifa Haftar. Meanwhile, the United Nations is investigating the use of Chinese drones by General Haftar in an apparent violation of an arms embargo on the warring parties. The Director General of the Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies joins us now to further analyze this issue. Professor Bola Akinterewa, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. So what can we expect from the Libyan Prime Minister's visit to Europe?
At best, we can expect mixed reactions. Why? It's on record that the Prime Minister will be going to Italy, to Germany, and to France. That triangular visit has one serious implication in terms of Libya's bilateral relationship with each of the countries. First of all, at the level of Italy, Italy used to be the former colonial master of Libya. So the type of expectation, the type of reaction to the visit should be located at the level of these post-colonial ties. I think that Italy is likely to show understanding in this case. But if you look at the visit to Germany, Germany has a position that all the warring parties in Libya should come together to be united so that the critical issue of migration can be meaningfully, constructively, and collectively addressed. But if you look at France, France has a troubled relationship with Italy in recent times. And look at the position of France. France is supporting too the opposition. So in this case, for France, this is an opportunity to use the opposition to the Prime Minister to fight Italy, which has taken a particular difficult position vis-à-vis France at the level of intra-European relationship. So in this case, we can expect that the reactions, cannot but be mixed.
Really just questions what kind of support he's expected to get considering all that. But Professor Akinterewa, the current offensive by General Haftar comes amidst UN-led plans for talks to help conduct delayed general elections. It also comes as Muslims observe the holy month of Ramadan. Yet the general is urging his troops not to back down on the offensive. Why is the LNA insisting on war instead of peaceful negotiations?
There are 2 or 3 different ways of looking at the question. If you want to go along the theory of von Clausewitz, he has argued that if you want peace, prepare for war. So one way of looking at it is to say that insisting on war is to use the war as a means of attaining peace. A second way of looking at it is that he may want to have a strengthening bargaining power at the level of both the UN and the European Union. As you have rightly pointed out yourself, that look, he has been engaged in the use of drones that are prohibited by the United Nations. So this time, there is a need to reconcile the differences at the level of the UN. Perhaps more importantly too, there is the factor that when it comes to the time to negotiate peace itself, there is the need for him to have a show of force to say, look, you must reckon with me. If you do not want to reckon with me, then you are not looking for peace. So in this case, it is more of a strategic calculation.
Yeah. Professor Bola Akinterewa, it's always a pleasure getting your thoughts on, well, Libya. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Now, Namibia's President, Age Geingob, has declared a state of emergency to tackle the effects of a drought, which has hit the southern African state. He says all government departments have been mobilized to protect Namibians and their livestock. The government has this month confirmed that it will subsidize farmers who reduce their herds as part of its drought intervention. Other programs the Agriculture Ministry is implementing in the face of drought relief interventions is the provision of water tankers for communities with no alternative sources of water in all regions. The water tankers are expected to benefit 10,000 households. Meanwhile, the United Nations is warning that the harsh drought conditions currently afflicting much of Somalia is likely to trigger a major humanitarian crisis if urgent action is not taken to contain the situation. Last year, a drought spanning 4 consecutive below-average rainy seasons left about 6.2 million people in need of emergency aid such as food, water and shelter. That prompted the UN to launch an aid appeal of $1.6 billion to help address the crisis.
While assessing the effects of the prolonged drought on vulnerable populations in Baidoa, the acting Deputy Special Representative of the UN Secretary-General for Somalia, George Conway, warns of a looming humanitarian crisis.
Major challenge right now is the underfunding of the 2019 Humanitarian Response Plan. Currently in May, only funded to 19% for the year, which is very worrying with the current extent of the humanitarian crisis.
According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, drought conditions in the 2018-2019 rainy season have led to an increase in the number of people designated as food insecure in Somalia since October last year. The UN also warns that a deterioration into crisis conditions is expected in many pastoral and agro-pastoral areas during the month of May due to funding shortfalls that may hamper a full implementation of the planned food assistance. Note Abdi Osman was displaced by the drought from the settlement of Hawa Baba, which is situated 30 kilometers outside of Baidoa. She laments the shortage of water and the mounting humanitarian needs at the Hawal Wadag camp, where she is now living.
Since coming here, our challenges multiplied. There is an extreme shortage of water. There was no education for our children when we came, but now there is a primary school providing the much-needed learning opportunities for our kids. The needs of the IDPs in this camp are huge, and we need assistance from the international community and the Southwest administration.
The UN Special Representative was accompanied by Monique Thalsen, Senior Advisor on Humanitarian Affairs at the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Svend Vordal, First Secretary at the Royal Norwegian Embassy in Nairobi, and Mataja Kovac, the head of OCHA's Humanitarian Financing Unit. The day-long trip included a visit to temporary shelters in Baidoa to assess the living conditions of internally displaced persons, IDPs, and weigh up appropriate measures to alleviate their suffering.
6 people have been arrested in South Africa after the car of an election official was set ablaze in Ganyesa town in Northwest Province on Monday. The cause of the incident is unclear. South Africa is holding its general elections on Wednesday, with the governing African National Congress expected to win with a reduced majority. Let's get more on this story from our South African correspondent, Becky Mali. Becky, thank you for joining us on the program. So what more can you tell us about the violence in Ganyesa town in the Northwest Province, where 6 people have been arrested?
Well, good afternoon. Besides the torching of the vehicle, in the same area, the residents have been protesting for the past weeks, protesting for service delivery. And they have also shut down the 3 schools that were earmarked for to be used during the election now. So it's quite disturbing because the leaders of the residents are the ones that are instigating the protests, saying no, we don't want to vote until everything that was promised to us long ago has been done. So the police have actually taken these guys into custody, but they haven't been formally charged or anything like that. So we're still waiting for an update on that.
Okay, let's talk about the actual elections. It is quite significant, isn't it? What is the mood like in the country ahead of the elections tomorrow?
Well, in the country right now, it's quite uneasy in some areas. Some areas people are overexcited because they're saying, no, finally changes come. We've been waiting for 5 years for this change to come. In some areas, people are like, no, they made promises, but after we vote, whatever promises they made, we can never get these things. But some people are saying, wow, finally we can get our party back into power. So it's all over the country, the moods are different. But generally, a lot of people are very excited. They can't wait for tomorrow to cast their vote.
Okay, well, while campaigning, President Cyril Ramaphosa, he promised to clean out the corruption that has become endemic under his party, the African National Congress. Do the voters believe this?
Not really. Okay, some voters believe it, but some voters are putting him on the spot and saying that, well, you haven't really taken any serious action against anyone. No serious arrests have been made. We have seen some people getting fired. We have seen some people resigning, but no one is currently, being prosecuted or going through the courts who has done things. Because, there has been a lot of corruption within its party itself. And some of the people in the top 6 are implicated in such corruption cases. So people are like, because in the last rally, President, he was literally begging and saying, you know what, we failed you, but at least give us another opportunity. But people are like, well, we are not really sure what to do with you because you haven't really taken action.
Well, it is going to be a big day, and we'll have to see how everything plays out. But moving on to other stories, there are reports that the Orcs, that's the police anti-corruption unit, is preparing to arrest a mayor, Zandile Gumede, for alleged corrupt practices. Can you tell us more about this?
Well, the mayor and actually a top official who is a councillor, an ANC councillor, have been implicated in corruption cases ranging to about 200 million rands in some tenders, and there was a cleanup tender that they were sort of involved in. Currently, the courts have concluded their investigations and they are proceeding to release a statement saying that they will be making arrests very soon. The mayor and the senior official are named as 2 of the top people that are implicated in this specific case because it includes the case of the waste removal and illegal dumping tender that was done a couple of years back, which costed the city around 200 million. So it is speculated that some of the money that was used for the tender was pocketed by the 2 alleged victims of alleged criminals. So at the moment, we are still yet to see if really the Hawks will go through the arrest or what will happen after. I think this should be after Friday.
All right then, Becky, thank you so much for speaking to us today on Network Africa. I'm sure we'll still be speaking to you during the course of the week.
Okay.
Still to come on the program. Liberia's President George Weah suspends his Deputy Information Minister for fueling ethnic divisions. Please stay with us.